Good day. Welcome back to Cheryl's Kitchen. I'm Charlie Niner, the host, writer, and producer of this show. Please be advised that my subjects often deal with traumatic and violent events, so viewer discretion is advised. Thought we'd talk about censorship today. It's something practiced by all levels of government: democracies, theocracies, monarchies, and dictatorships. It happens at the local level, the provincial level, and the state level. Censorship is not just limited to the government. It's practiced by private industry, individuals, government agencies, and many other agencies. So let's ask some questions. What exactly is censorship? Who practices it? Why do we practice it? And is it ethical? So these are four questions I thought I'd ask. So let's go through them one by one. So what is censorship? Well, in my mind, it's the deliberate suppression or omission of information or knowledge from the public by government agencies, and industries. Now, another definition you could use is censorship is the suppression of speech, public communication, or other information. This may be done on the basis that such material is considered objectionable, harmful, sensitive, or inconvenient. Censorship can be conducted by governments, private institutions, or other controlling bodies. So that's the definition, and we'll just go from there. So, who practices censorship? Like the definition answered, it can be conducted by governments, private institutions, and other controlling bodies. Many years ago, we had a film censorship board in Canada, and I believe it was in Ontario, and that's generally where every other province in Canada took their guide from, and they censored a lot of movies. I think that board is done now. So the short answer is all levels of government, private industry, and just about everybody around you practices censorship in one form or another. We, in fact, practice our own. When we filter something, we don't say something objectionable. Let's get to that in a minute. So, why do we allow it? There are some very compelling reasons to censor information. Let's look at why governments censor info. Despite the journalists and the media's constant telling you the public has a right to know, sometimes the public doesn't have a right to know. Governments censor information that could be detrimental to the nation if that information was ever released publicly. So let's use some examples. Let's use the obvious one: intelligence information, military intelligence, law enforcement intelligence, whatever you want to put out there. If it was released publicly, it could be detrimental to your nation. Security of high-level personnel, travel schedules. For instance, it used to amaze me that you would see the Prime Minister, Stephen Harper, in Parliament one day, and the next newscast you'd see him, he would be live in Afghanistan. So that's a reason why you'd want to censor that information. You don't want his travel itinerary getting out if he's going to a war-torn country. The identities of Special Operations Forces personnel. If those identities aren't censored and protected, not only are their lives in danger, their lives of their families are in danger. Because quite often they have put some very bad people in the ground. As an example, the Navy SEAL team that took out Osama bin Laden. The judiciary censors information as well. So an example of this is the Youth Criminal Justice Act. The names of anybody under 18 cannot be released publicly. That is by statute of the government for a very good reason. So in industry, there are a few compelling reasons why you would want to censor your information. The protection of intellectual property being but one. Millions and billions of dollars are at stake. Perhaps a life-saving technology, if released publicly, could harm the corporation. On a more contrary note, quite often they have something to hide. So we've seen this a number of times with big tobacco fudging the results of studies, big pharma with the OxyContin debacle, and a few other things. For instance, Volkswagen was faking their information to make their vehicles look more better, I guess, than it was true. So as individuals, we censor ourselves constantly. So why do we do this? Well, one, to avoid confrontation and avoiding hurt feelings. We censor ourselves to stay out of trouble. Let's talk about the respectful workplace. And we can also censor, leave out bits of information, or pump them up to gain an advantage on someone. So is censorship ethical? Well, I guess you would argue in certain circumstances it's not only ethical, but proper and necessary. The public doesn't always have a right to know. Some time ago, I wrote a paper on censorship by Canada in World War One, and what they did was they would not release casualty figures in World War One, just as a brief summation, and so as to not undermine the war effort. So let's talk about political correctness, which is a form of censorship now. We used to call a spade, but with the PC movement, we now call it a small handheld earth-moving device. Political correctness is, in my mind, a method of censorship, usually by people who can't stand to hear the truth. So is censorship a violation of free speech? Well, that's a good question. And again, it depends on what ethical lens you're looking through. It also depends on the nation you live in. So let's talk about North Korea, the most oppressive society on earth, the most oppressive country on earth. It censors everything. Very little outside information is disseminated in North Korea, and if it is, it's for the benefit of the dear leader, Kim Jong-un. Do we censor in Canada? Well, yes and no. Kind of, I guess. But with this Bill C-11, which I'll look into further, that threatens our free speech, and it threatens to put censorship on you, the individual citizen. So suffice it to say, censorship is an issue that has potential to be very divisive. What the government, in reality, which is us, wants censored, and the public, again, us, wants censored, are often at odds, and probably will remain so. So, in conclusion, in the meantime and in between times, that's it for another edition of Cheryl's Kitchen.